Hello friends, this is Jim here at Science Talk, and I have a very disturbing report to share with you. This is a paper published in the journal Science, and one of the researchers is Edward Mitchell, who is the leader of the Laboratory of Soil Biology at the University of Neuchâtel in Switzerland. What am I talking about? Bees. Now, I'm sure you are aware that there's a problem with the population of bees worldwide. The pollinating bees that pollinate the plants that grow our food have been on the decline. Well, now we're finding that 3/4 of all the honey on Earth has pesticides in it. Of course, bees make honey, which means the bees are being exposed to pesticides. This is, as I said, this is extremely disturbing. Now, here's the thing. The pesticide levels were below the limit deemed safe for human consumption. In other words, it does not necessarily impact humans, but look at the size of a human, look at the size of a bee. Okay? It's going to be affecting the bees more likely. The findings suggest, as one of the researchers stated, there's almost no safe place for a bee to exist. So in the years from 2012 to 2016, this is what scientists did. They analyzed 198 honey samples from all continents except Antarctica, obvious reason, for 5 types of pesticides that are referred to as neonicotinoids. Like nicotine, right? Neonicotinoids, which are known to cause harm to bees. They found at least one of the 5 compounds in most samples, with the highest contamination in North America, Asia, and Europe. Neonicotinoids, or neonics for short, are among the most widely used insecticides in the world, but they're known to cause problems with the brains of the bees, basically messing them up. Not being able to find the direction to, the pollen source, what have you. In other words, they couldn't remember where they need to go. They couldn't learn where they need to go. Very serious. So basically, it's now flying around aimlessly almost. So the classic bee dance that you learn in high school bio, they can't really do that anymore. So if they can't remember where to go, or even once they pick up the pollen, they can't remember how to get back to the hive, well, guess what? They're not going to make it back. They're going to die. Because bees, believe it or not, can fly up to 7 miles from their hive. That's quite a distance, to get the nectar, the pollen, etc. And then they remember their way back. Well, the neonics are affecting their ability to remember their way back. These pesticides are partly blamed for the worldwide decline of honeybees. Not totally, but it's a contributing factor. And of course, we know that bees are key for pollinating crops. Apples, berries, cucumbers, cantaloupes, almonds even. Okay. More than $15 billion a year in U.S. crops alone are pollinated by bees. In 2013, the European Union banned the use of 3 neonics on crops that are visited by bees. But because these pesticides are used to coat the seeds of crops, much of it leaches onto the soil, contaminating nearby wildflowers and other crops. Even in tiny doses, these chemicals can harm bees, said Dr. Mitchell adds. These neonics are extremely toxic, 4,000 to 5,000 times more toxic than DDT. Holy shit. The lowest contamination was in South America. Their neonic concentrations were relatively low, on average 1.8 nanograms per gram in contaminated honey, below the limit set as safe for people by the EU. Dr. Mitchell says, for human consumption, we cannot say that there's any risk based on current legislation. But if you're putting at risk the bees themselves, then long-term wise, there will be risk to people if you don't have bees pollinating the crops to grow your food. So negative effects in bees are shown with as little as 0.1 nanograms per gram. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with all the prefixes of the metric system, a nanogram is basically 10 to the minus 9. So let's take, let's take a unit of measure of length. I have a meter, okay, use a meter, whatever. And then I have a decimeter, which is 1/10. So a decimeter is 1/10 of a meter. So that is, so 10 decimeters equals 1 meter. There are also 10 centimeters per decimeter. Everyone's familiar with the centimeter. So if you have 10 centimeters per decimeter and you have 10 decimeters per meter, 10 times 10, there's 100 centimeters to a meter. Well, a centimeter is further divided into 10 millimeters. So now 10 times 100 is 1,000. There are 1,000 millimeters in a meter. And milli is a prefix meaning 1/1000th. As it turns out, there are 1,000 micrometers, sometimes called microns for short, per millimeter. So now we have 1,000 times 1,000, that's 1 million. Micro means 1/1,000,000th. And then you get to, there are 1,000 nanometers per micrometer. 1,000 times 1 million is 1 billion, or 1/1,000,000th, 10 to the minus 9. The minus in the exponential is not a negative assigning, it means 1 over. So 10 to the minus 9 is 1 over 10 to the 9th. Just like 10 to the minus 6 for micron, or micro, is 1 over 10 to the 6th. Milli, 10 to the minus 3rd, 1 over 10 to the minus 1 over 10 to the 3rd. So you can do the same thing for grams. You have decigrams, you have centigrams, you have milligrams, 1,000 grams per gram. Micrograms, 1 million micrograms per gram. So nanogram is 1 billion nanograms per gram. So now we're talking 1/10 of a nanogram. That's 10 to the minus 10 per gram. That is an extremely low amount. And yes, we do have machines that can measure such low levels. Has to be carefully done. So this is, neonics are nasty shit. Be quite blunt about it. So the results suggest that all over the world, bees are exposed to levels of neonics that damage their brains. Dr. Mitchell goes on to say, he said that neonics were found even in honey from remote areas like oceanic islands, which is a surprise because they didn't expect to see any there. One of the honey samples came from a beehive kept in a forest in Neuchâtel, surrounded by organic or agricultural fields. But even that sample was contaminated. Dr. Mitchell says, we were shocked and surprised. There's contamination everywhere. Just like now we're finding microplastics everywhere, even in the Arctic Ocean. Christopher Connolly, who is a neurobiologist at the University of Dundee School of Medicine, says, The problem could even be worse. And he was not involved in this current study. In this study, researchers only tested the honey for 5 neonics, but crop fields are sometimes sprayed with more than 20 chemicals, and bees hop from field to field, Connolly says. So the honey could contain many more pesticides. This is the tip of the iceberg, Dr. Connolly says. Dr. Mitchell, the only solution to the problem is to change how crops are raised. There's currently a dogma that we can't feed the world without using these pesticides, Mitchell says. But I really question this assumption, and I think we should really consider alternatives more seriously than we do today. He's right. I agree with him. Now, granted, agriculture is not my specialty, but on the logic of it, I would say he is correct. Neonics, which kill a broad variety of insects, are used as preventative. The seeds are coated in these pesticides, even though farmers don't know whether pests are going to attack their crops. So imagine you did that to your own body. Just cover yourself with stuff you don't know. But you think you don't know if you're going this particular nasty is going to attack you, but you think it might. This is why, it's like, it's now pretty much summertime up here in Alaska, and the mosquitoes are out. Everyone talks about, get the off and the DEET and all that kind of stuff. I don't like using that stuff. I definitely don't put it on my skin. If I put it on anything, I put it on my clothing. Then I always take the article of clothing and toss it in the wash. But I do not put that stuff on my skin at all. Because what happens, the skin absorbs that. And these have been shown to be carcinogens, cancer-causing chemicals. Okay? Imagine the bees. They don't have the luxury of putting on a shirt. They can be covered in this crap. Connolly says that governments around the world should discourage farmers to use neonics widely, stepping in to help farmers if crops are lost. Some insects are already becoming resistant to neonics. So these pesticides should be used only when they're actually needed. Very similar to how many strains of bacteria are becoming resistant to antibiotics. A lot of these insects are becoming resistant to neonics, but the thing is, though, so it's not killing them, but it's messing up their brains. So Dr. Connolly continues, today's findings are concerning not only for bees, even though most studies have focused on how neonics harm honeybees, these pesticides are likely to harm many more insects, including butterflies, moths, earthworms, of course earthworms are not insects, that live in contaminated soil. Our ecosystems need a variety of insects to be strong and resilient, just as our crops need a variety of pollinators to survive. If we keep using pesticides indiscriminately, we don't know when we can expect a tipping point. This is a very dangerous strategy for humankind to go down. We need to reassess, rethink our agricultural practices. Plain English. And of course, not only is this problematic for the bees themselves, but if we start having crop failures with an ever-increasing human population, we're going to have massive famine. It will be massive die-off. So this is something that needs to be addressed. For example, there's a pesticide use in the U.S., and the U.S. only, called glyphosate, been banned all over Europe and Russia, Japan, I think, as well. And glyphosate now has been shown to do something interesting. It induces obesity. And if someone has, the right genetic, metabolic propensity, you ingest crops, exposed to glyphosate, your body will make fat. Great. So and the thing is, this stuff, you spray it on the plants, it gets into the soil and is absorbed through the roots. So none of this, well, just wash the plants. No, it's actually internal in the plants that you eat. So you try to eat healthy, and if you got the wrong genetics, you turn into what we physicists like to say, you turn into a perfect sphere. Not funny, but that's, whenever we start doing modeling, the joke is you assume a perfect sphere. And those are easy to model. But we're just spraying chemicals indiscriminately, and what studies are showing is really the harm that's being done, and they're not really necessary. All it is just money for big companies. That's really all it is. Sell the stuff, make the profits. That's all it really is all about. I mean, look at the late brilliant Rachel Carson. I did a video segment on her a very long time ago, featuring her. Her book, The Silent Spring, discussed how bad DDT is, and her book led to the formation of the EPA, Earth Day, Clean Air, Clean Water Act. All those things stemmed from her. It led to the banning, the banned use of DDT and such similar pesticides. Well, I think it's high time we start banning a lot more of these pesticides, because in the long run, we're only harming ourselves. Thank you for your time. Hey folks, this is Jim here reminding you to please subscribe to my channel and please share my videos with others. Also remember to click the bell so that you know when I drop in a new video. I also ask that you please consider becoming a patron of my channel and support the work that I do by going to patreon.com/Science Talk with Jim Massa, each word separated by an underscore, and becoming a patron. It's asking for as little as $3 a month, cost of a cup of coffee, to support the work I do and keep my informative videos coming your way. Thank you for your support.